Hi, everybody. It's Kestin from Cricut here with our next webinar, the Ready, Set, Cut webinar. It's the third in our Design Space 101 series. I know some of you attended Part A and Part B, so welcome to Part C. Really excited to have you here today. Hopefully we can help you overcome some of those questions that you had regarding mats and blades and how that all works in Design Space. We're here for you. So get settled, get yourself a drink. It's going to be a fun time. It's like a class. This is just a digital class. We have several hundred people in this class, and we want it to be as lively as possible and you to be engaged as much as possible. So if you want to have another tab open where you can have Design Space open, that might help you, so you can toggle back and forth and try things out as we go through it. Let's get started. So here's our agenda, and it's pretty straightforward. We have just a few housekeeping things we'll go through, and then we'll get right into it. So like I said, my name is Kestin. I am the Director of Education Experience here at Cricut. And we have two moderators who are helping us answer your questions in live, real time. And they're pros, you guys. They're awesome. So we have Karen Gates and Brigham Schmidt. And so if you have a question or something isn't working or you want a little more detail, in the control panel that you have, there's a little arrow that you click that says questions, and you can type your question and either Karen or Brigham will answer that. So feel free. It's like a classroom. So ask away. I won't be answering it so we can keep the flow of the class going, but hey, we have people here ready for you who have all the answers. Not kidding. Just a few housekeeping things. This class is designed for newbies, for those of you that are just new to Design Space and you're just learning. But we welcome everyone. But just know that the curriculum is designed. It's not an advanced class. It's for that new person who's trying to get over the hump, okay? And try to focus your questions on what we're learning today, because we have so many people joining that we want to make sure that we answer your questions that you have. And then there is a handout it's kind of like a little cheat sheet for you. So you're welcome to take that and download it and keep it to the side if you want. As you work, it might help you along your way. And then at least 24 hours from now, after this is over, you'll receive an email from me that will have the recording of this webinar, so you can go back and watch if you miss anything or you want to hear something again. And at the very end, I have a quick, brief survey for you. I love your feedback. As I'm designing more and more webinars, I'd love to hear what you're interested in learning. So please stay on just a little bit after to take that survey. Okay, you guys, what are you going to learn today? We're going to talk about the differences between the Cricut mats and blades. You're also going to learn what blades and mats are specific to certain materials. And then we will go through the cut screen and the mat preview screen in Design Space and talk you through some of the elements and functions in those screens to help you through to make sure that you get the cut that you want. So that's what we're learning today. Let's get started talking about mats. There are 4 different types of mats, and so I have them right here. I have my blue mat, which is the standard grip mat, or excuse me, the light grip mat, and that's for those lighter weight materials. And in the handout, it will show you some of those materials, some examples of what I mean by lightweight, and I'll get to that screen in just a minute. But and then our green, which is our most versatile mat, and this one is the standard grip. This is like my go-to mat. If I have a go-to mat, this is the one that I use probably more than any of the others, just simply because that's what fits the materials that I usually cut. And then we have our strong grip mat, which is the purple one. And finally, our fabric grip mat. And those of you that have a maker, would have received the fabric grip mat with your machine. So along with that, you notice that there is, and some people don't know this, there is a protective sheet, right? Let's see if that's a very good angle for you. There's a protective sheet here, and you want to peel it off and then place your materials on the mat. As soon as it's cut, you want to put this sheet back on because the mat's very in stickiness, right? And so you want to keep and preserve these mats as long as possible. So that's why I suggest you put this protection back on it. Otherwise, it just picks up everything, lint, dust, you name it, because it's so sticky. So just keep that protective film over the top and you'll be fine. Also, let's say you're cutting paper and you have your cut and you've peeled it off. You'll want to take off the excess pieces, and sometimes I've used like our scraper to just scrape the little shavings away. I don't do that with this pink mat. The pink mat, it's not recommended that you use the scraper. More so, if you have fabric, you might want to use the tweezers to peel off any of those pieces of material. You don't have to get every thread, by the way. You can lay your material back over it and it has a few threads on it. It will still cut to precision. Not to worry about that. Okay, let's look at the next slide. So in the light grip, you can see common office paper, the thin cardstock. You can see those lists, and this, I just love this slide because I kept it by me when I was first learning, so I know which mat goes with which material. So if you're using, if you're in Design Space and you use a ready-to-make project, it tells you what mat to use, but if you're designing it from scratch, you just have to know that. So this will be your helper until you get to the point where you don't need it anymore and you just know from experience what works for you and what works the best. But it's nice at the beginning to have something like that. I wish I had had something like that. Okay, let's talk about, oh, I wanted to mention one other thing. Just a quick tip for you. When you're taking your materials off your mat, I suggest that you take the mat and turn it over and peel it this way, right? Sometimes it rolls off easier than trying to take it and pulling it off from the front, but flipping it over and peeling it away from your material works. It works well. So let's look at the blades. So before we do that, let me find out let's do a poll. Let's find out what machine are you working with? I want to know so I can gear this to fit what you're working with. So would you quickly just mark for me which Cricut machine do you own that you're working in Design Space with? Let's see what we have here. Just a few more seconds. Okay, I'm going to close the poll here and share the results with you. Interesting split today. So we have it's neck and neck, Maker and Explore Air 2, and then the Explore Air. So that's great. I'll gear this for all three of you. It's wonderful. All right. So that helps me know what kind of blades you're going to be using. So this handy little chart just lets you know what blades work with what machines. Okay. So if you have a Maker, you have access to all of those blades. It is the adaptive tool set, and that's the bonus by having the Maker. If you have the other machines, you're working with the fine point blade and housing that looks like this, and for you makers, you have this as well. You also can get the deep, and it's black, the deep point blade and housing for those thicker materials that you want to use, like faux leather or something like that. You want to use this deep cut blade. Also, there's a bonded fabric blade that's pink. So it looks just like this. Excuse me, and it is just like this, but it's pink. So the blades are actually the same. It's just the housing. One is pink and one is not. The reason we want to have a pink one is I would just use it for your bonded fabric only, right? It just extends that life, so you're not mixing fabric and paper. Just like your pair of scissors at home. I know if at my house when I was growing up, if I used my mom's fabric scissors on a paper project, curtains, right? You just don't do that. So this is kind of the same principle here. This pink bonded fabric blade, this one is for fabrics. This one is for your papers and vinyl and iron-on, things like that. Hope that makes sense. And just a little tip, sometimes, I mean, you have to be really careful, you guys. If you're brand new, these are really sharp. I'm telling you, I have cut myself. It's hard to even see but the little blade. But this little blade right here at the top is super sharp. Sometimes I get little pieces of paper stuck. It doesn't necessarily mean the blade's dull. It just means that I have a little bit of paper maybe lodged in there. And just a quick tip, I have a pin cushion and I just stick this in the pin cushion and it removes those little shavings nicely. So that's a little tip for you. You might wonder, when do I have to change the blade? It just depends on everyone's usage, you guys, because some people cut heavier materials and some don't. And so they wear differently based on the materials that you're cutting. But you'll know it's not working well when it doesn't cut accurately or through, and you're seeing some problems that way. Also, your mat life is kind of the same principle. Depending on what you're cutting is how long the mats will last. There's not like a fixed number or anything. I started counting. I just put like tally marks on the bottom, and I got up to 30 on one of my green mats. But on these, you'll notice that the stickiness is not whole paper, and it's shifting around, and it will mess up your cuts. It won't be accurate. And so that's when you know you need to either get a new mat or clean it off or something like that. Hope that answers some of those questions, those burning questions you have out there. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about the differences between the two blades. So we have the premium fine point blade that all of your machines use, and then we have the rotary blade. And so those of you that may be thinking about a maker, so just so you know the difference. So this blade, when in your machine, it will drag it to cut. So it drags. When the rotary blade is in your machine, it will cut, lift up, turn, go a different direction, lift up, turn, go a different direction. That's kind of the beauty of it, because it looks like a tiny little handheld rotary blade, right? And that is super sharp as well, you guys. Be really careful about leaving these out for your little guys, because kids are fascinated by these, and they're very, very sharp. So just a warning about safety, keeping that in a nice, secure place. Okay, let's move on. Hopefully, if you have another question about that, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask. This slide shows how you match material to certain blades. And like I said, in Design Space, if you're doing a Make It Now project, it will cue you which blade should be in your machine. And we'll see that here in just a minute. But this is kind of a nice little handy dandy guide, so you can get to know what paper or what material, like iron-on or vinyl, what should I be cutting with that. And so it's just a nice little cue for you to realize, oh, okay, if I'm going to want to cut some cardboard, I better look into this deep cut cutting blade and housing. So let's move on. We're going to move on. Let's take a poll. I'm really interested in knowing let's see. How many of you have already cut something in Design Space, and how much have you cut? So how many projects have you actually gone through and cut? Maybe not assembled, because that requires more, but I'm just curious that you've gone through the process of cutting, and that some of you have been, I know, doing that trial and error type of thing. But let's see where you are here. Looks like most of you have voted. Oh, you're so fast, you guys. Good job. All right, here we go. Look at that, 25%, 25%, not a one or two. So we do have a lot of newbies here. This will be good for you to see the next few screens in Design Space. So we're really excited to have you here. Okay, I'm going to go out of my PowerPoint Prezzo really quickly and get into Design Space here. So if you have your browser open, you can just type in up in the URL design.cricut.com and you're there. So if you remember, this is called the home screen, right? Raise your hand if you knew that this was the home screen. If you took my other class, you knew that, or you're just so smart and you have it figured out. Let's go through a project, and then I'll walk you through those screens, the map preview screen and the cut screen. So let's find a project, and I've already found one that works for all of us here that's free. I'm going to go under, let's see here, I'm going to get on the canvas and go to projects. And I'm going to search. I know it starts with the word simple. And here it is, the Simple Creations Invite. If you want to get there, you can just search that way too. So this is the one, I'm right here. Simple Celebrations Invite. Okay. Some of you may not know what this little A in the corner is. It's Access, Cricut Access membership. If you are a member, then those things, those images or projects that have that A, those are things that you have access to. Otherwise, some of those are for purchase, and you'd have to purchase those if you wanted them. The great thing is you can use them in Design Space on your canvas if you want to design it, to decide if you want to even buy it. Because it won't require you to purchase it until the cut screen. So just FYI. So I'm going to click here on the Simple Celebrations Invite. And this is a Make It Now project. And we've talked about, this is like a pattern, if you will, right? So let's see here. Oops, sorry, I just clicked the wrong button. I wanted to use my highlighter. Those of you that took this class before, you might have remembered this icon here that shows a printer that you can go ahead and print those directions if you want. It says easy, right? It's for easy. If it was intermediate, it would say intermediate or advanced. It gives you the time, about how much time that's going to take. And you can also see over here in the bottom left-hand corner, a Cricut Access and the price of that. Here, customize. If I want to change this card, I would click customize, which I probably would, because I want to change the date and where this is going to be and things like that. But for our purposes today, I'm just going to click Make It so we can get to those screens. Okay, so I'm going to click Make It. And this is called the Mat Preview screen. So let's go through some of the elements that are here on this screen so you know how it works. So you can see mats are organized by color. So I have my yellow card, I have the green part, and then the envelope. And so what you need to do is, even though it looks like this color of yellow, if you don't want to use that color of yellow, that's fine. Use what you have. It's just how Design Space organizes it by color, which is a really important thing to know. Let's look here up at the very top. Raise your hand if you know what would happen if I click this Simple Celebrations invite. That's the title of the project. If I click on it, which a lot of people didn't know this, it shows me the project again. So I can refer to it and go, oh yeah, that's what it looked like. Maybe I wanted to look a little bit more closely at it before I put everything on the mat, or scroll and read, oh, it's suggesting this kind of cardstock or this color of silver, vinyl, something like that. So it's a nice little way to refer back to the project. I'm going to put my highlighter on and go over here. This, remember, is the menu. It can take me back to the home page or to help or to a new canvas. It also shows me it's prepared 3 mats to cut. And you can see here they are in the order in which it will cut them. It doesn't mean that you have to go in that order, but it's just saying this is the sequence that it's going to go, so you know. And also, right here, it shows that it's going to cut. It's going to cut that rectangle. Look down here. It's going to draw or do the writing, and then it will cut. And for the envelope, it will score and then cut. So the order of, kind of the order of operations, if you will, it will want to, excuse me, I'm like, my throat's a little bit sore today. It will want to score and draw and cut being the very last one. But it will cue you. It will let you know. Okay, let's go back up here to project copies. This means that I can make multiple copies of this without having to duplicate it back on the canvas. And let me show you, it's really simple. And this is a perfect example of what you would want, a type of project you'd want to duplicate since it's an invitation. You could say, I have 6 kiddos coming to this party, so I'm going to click on my arrows up to 6. You need to click Apply, and you can see it will apply it. There we go. So 4 on that mat, and then so forth and so on. And I can click on the mat, and it will highlight it for me so I can see how to lay it down, the paper on my mat. Okay. All right, I'm going to go back. I can change that anytime I want here, right? This is the time to make those changes. Also, I wanted to point out material size. If I click here, it's automatically by default, it goes to 12 by 12, which is the size of the mats I was showing you. We do have mats that are 12 by 24 inches for bigger projects, but let's just say you have a smaller piece of paper or a smaller piece of vinyl or iron-on, and you want to make sure it fits, and it's like, oh, I don't have a 12 by 12, but I have a 9 by 12, and you can see here it automatically scaled to that size, so you know that you'd have enough room. And it would be important if I had multiple copies on this, so I could see, hey, am I going to go over and not have enough room? It just gives you a little bit to know before you send it through the machine to cut, so you're not surprised. Okay, so sometimes surprises aren't so good. So notice that it does go all the way to 12 by 24. So I'm going to just leave it at 12 by 12. Now, the next item I wanted to share with you is this mirror over here. Let me put my highlighter on for you. So I'm looking right here at mirror, and there's this little switch, right? So I want, before I tell you about it, I want you to participate in a poll with me. Tell me, what type of project would you use this mirror image in Design Space? What type of project would you want to mirror an image in Design Space? Would it be for cards and paper, or a vinyl project, maybe iron-on or HTV projects, or fabric or sewing? Does anyone know? I'm just kind of curious. This is one of those really important things to know before you cut. So let's just go ahead and vote and see your knowledge on this. And you guys are a pretty smart audience, I can tell. So majority of you are saying for iron-on and HTV project. Iron-on and HTV are the same thing. Heat transfer vinyl is what HTV stands for. We call our HTV iron-on, just so we can differentiate it between our vinyl, because iron-on and vinyl are the same. They're vinyl, but iron-on like this is like HTV. It's the same kind of thing. Okay, and the reason you'd want to mirror image this, which you do for iron-on specifically, because when you go to take off the sheet, it's going to, especially words, right? It will be the mirror image. So then when you take it off and iron it on your t-shirt or onesie or bag, it will read correctly. Otherwise, it will be opposite, right? It'll look like ambulance spelled backwards, right? That same principle. So what I want you to remember is, okay, here's a piece of iron-on. You can see this one looks like it's matte, and this is shiny. Can you see how much more shiny that is? You want to put the shiny side down onto your mat. So here I have my mat. I'm going to put the shiny side down, and then I'm going to make sure I move this little toggle over and mirror image, and it would flip it over. Okay, that's for iron-on. This is a card, but I wanted to let you know, if you're going to do an iron-on project, which I would highly recommend, it's one of the easiest things to do, be sure to mirror image. And I just automatically mirror image everything when I'm doing iron-on, just to get in that habit, which is a good habit, so you don't ruin your materials. So that's one of the key things to pick up on in this map preview screen. Notice also I can make this screen a little bit bigger. So if we had something smaller here on the mat, I can come down here and make it smaller or bigger. So maybe I want to see it better. So I could say, I need to see a little bit bigger what it's going to look like. Or since that really isn't important for me to see, maybe I want to see how this one looks because it has a little bit more information on it. So that's what that does. It just is to magnify. It automatically sets it at 75%, just so you have enough space to see majority of it all the time. Okay, now that's pretty much it. We're ready to hit continue and go to the next step. And so I'm going to actually get my mat ready to go, like I was going to cut this. And I've got my machine on, and so you can see what it would be like. So I'm going to click continue. Now, this is the mat cut screen. Notice over here in the top left-hand corner where it said project copies, it doesn't enable me to select that anymore. It's grayed out. So if I wanted to change the number of copies, I'd have to go back and do that on the previous screen. It also is saying, hey, you need to connect your machine. So I'm going to find my machine, and I have my Explore Air 2 right beside me. And I have already set it to Bluetooth. Looks like it's spinning, it's trying. It's going to get there. We'll just give it a little bit of time as I talk here. As it's trying to choose this, notice that I have here on this second mat the word edit, and I can click on edit, and I can say, oh, I forgot to mirror image. I could click that if I needed to, or I could click on the piece on the mat and move it if I need to, because after I set my material down, I noticed maybe I had a little hole here, or I didn't quite set it straight on the mat, and so I want to move it over a little bit, which is totally fine. Okay, so this, now that I've selected my machine, it's like a 1, 2, 3. The first thing is to set your material. Now I have my Air 2, and I have a dial. And so if I reach over and change the dial, you can see now it's a paper, and I move it to paper plus, so it's a little bit maybe thicker paper. I could move it again to vinyl and be set. That's how I set it, just with the dial. If you have some other material that you aren't sure, it isn't on the dial, set it to custom. And sometimes I just leave it on custom and go with the screen here in Design Space, so I don't goof up and just leave it on paper all the time. So I leave it here, and I love being able to choose exactly what material. I want to make sure it's really accurate, because that will decide the pressure on your blade and how it's going to cut to precision. So it's really important you get the right material of what you're using. So this first cut was a piece of cardstock, right? And so I can see if on these 12 that are listed here, these are just general ones that are used most by our users. But if I don't see it, I want to click View All. Now, if I just scrolled, look at all of the materials that I have access to cut, right? A lot of materials. So I can either scroll, which takes a little bit of time, or I could just put cardstock and just do card, and it will bring up the choices that I have for cardstock. And I'm just using a medium cardstock. So I click that, hit done. And I don't know if you heard my machine click, but it is set. This little pressure says default. I could, if my blade may have been used a lot, and I want it to, and maybe it's not cutting exactly, it's on its last legs, I could say more or less based on your need. But I haven't found that I use that very much. I usually leave it on default. And now we're at 2, which means load your mat. And I want you to notice these 3 boxes before we get going. It's really important that you notice this is like the order of what it's going to need to do. So there's your order. So it's saying load your midnight pen and clamp A. That's the first thing. So it's going to draw, right? It says it over here. It's going to draw, right? And then the second, after it draws it, then it's going to say, now make sure that you have your fine tip point blade in clamp B. And just make sure that you have the right tools in your machine before you set go. So I'm going to take my mat, and I'm going to put it under the guides. You have 2 little guides on the side, and you have a roller. And then you have these little white things that, there are about 5 of them. and they're star wheels, and they're going to catch that mat as it rolls through. So I'd like to push it right up, snug up against that roller. Click the arrow button on the machine, and that's just going to load your mat and get ready to cut. Notice what happens here on Design Space. It's saying you have these tools, you have your midnight pen, you have your fine point blade in. Now you're at number 3, you're ready to press go, sister. So then I just reach over to my machine, click the Cricut C, and it's ready to go. Okay, and it's that simple, you guys. It's loading, ready to go. Just note, if you ever need to stop something, use the pause key, the pause button over on your machine, and this is what you'll see. I wanted to. You can make a change right here if you need to. Like, oops, I forgot to put in my pen. I forgot to put in the scoring tool. It just gives you that opportunity to regroup, if you will, and you can resume your cut, or you can say cancel it. We're just going to cancel it and go back. So I'm just going to say, oh, let's make a change. Maybe I want to change my cardstock, and I want to do a glitter instead. I can do that. Just press the go button and resume my cut. It's that simple. Okay, so that's pretty easy. That's the mat preview screen, the mat cut screen in Design Space, and I encourage you to get in there and do more cutting. Let me go back to my PowerPoint presentation, if you will. I wanted just to review a few things with you. Some of you you're so new. I don't want you to feel like you don't have any help out there. We have a great member service team that are here, that are waiting to answer your call or chat with you or even receive your email. I'm like old school. My phone, I have them in as my favorites, and I will call and they will talk me through it. Simple things too. Maybe just you haven't even unpacked your box, or you don't know how to connect it via Bluetooth. That's something that they could walk you through. They can walk you through the whole mat cutting process, or which blade or which type of paper or anything that you need help with. I want you to know they're there to help you, and you should definitely give them a shot. Give them a chance to help you out. Just reviewing what we did today, we learned the difference between the mats and the blades, and we also talked about which mats are work for different materials. And in the handout, there are a few little cheat sheets for you to use as you're getting started. And also, we walked through the mat preview screen and the mat cutting screen in Design Space. So my challenge to you is to cut a ready-to-make project. Just do it and cut it. Try it out. Even if you don't assemble it, it's good to get into the practice. It's kind of like I'm learning this as I go, but it's great because the ready-to-make projects are already set up for you. You don't have to design it, but it will walk you through this cutting phase, which is important for you to learn how you're integrating with your machine. The second thing, watch your videos. These videos are so great, and there's some in there right now waiting for you that will help you get some of the material that we even talked about today. And where can you find those? I would just want to show you really quickly. If you go into your browser, open up a screen, here we go, and go to learn.cricut.com, learn.cricut.com. This is a great resource for you. Notice I have it bookmarked right up here, and I would go right to Design Space, click there. This Design Space for Beginners, this is a great series of videos that are short and sweet, so just click there and be sure to scroll all the way down they're 1 or 2 minutes long at the most. And notice that it goes up to, I think, page 5, maybe, yeah, 4 actually. And they have about 5 or 6 on each page. Take a few minutes every day and watch 1 or 2 videos. It really helps you get a clear understanding of Design Space and how it works. And that's my challenge to you today. I appreciate you joining me next week. I'll have a new class for you on Tuesday and Thursday. Be sure to sign up on our official Facebook page. That will be advertised either Saturday or Sunday of this weekend. So look forward to joining with you next week. Happy cutting and happy crafting, everybody. Have a great night.